The following clip is from the North to South Show, live every Monday and Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, where we talk SEC football everything. Now, we'd love to have you out for next show, but for now, hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button, and enjoy this clip. Well, I really want to talk about this LSU and Auburn game that is upcoming this year. This will be played in Week 5 when Auburn travels down to Death Valley in LSU for what should be an underrated and exciting SEC game. I'm really excited for this one. This seems like every single year these two teams kind of are evenly matched, and they really match up well. I know last year's game was a bit of a blowout, which we're going to talk about in a bit, but you look to the year before that in 2019, yeah, that was the LSU team that won the national championship. That was the team that was blowing out teams like Oklahoma. They put up a ton of points against Clemson. They were beating Alabama. They put up 46 points against them. Texas, they were running the scoreboard up against them. The lowest scoring game that LSU team had all season was at home against Auburn. So this matchup has always been really, really good. And this matchup this week, or this upcoming year in Week 5, should be no different. So I'm really, really excited to talk about this game. Both teams coming up to this point, this will be both teams' first SEC game. Both teams will have played one big road test, Power 5 road test coming into the season. So LSU is traveling to UCLA in Week 1, which I think is an underrated game. I did my preview on that game already. I've done my preview on both of these games because Auburn has also had a big Power 5 road game, probably the biggest one in all the SEC, when they have to travel to Penn State for most likely going to be the whiteout game. Never an easy environment to play in, and I think we're going to have a really, really good idea of where both of these teams are headed going into this game. In this current moment right now, there's still a lot to be told. I think especially more for these two teams than any of the other previews I've done. I think there's still lots to be told for both of these teams that you cannot judge in this current point in time, but I'm going to try to do my best, so it's going to be exciting. Last year, Auburn won this game 48-11. Now, it was a bit earlier in the season. This was a CBS game. I think this was early to mid. I can't remember what exact week it was. It was after the South Carolina LSU game, which would have been October 20. This game was probably October 31st, October 21st, 24th, something like that. It was somewhere around that. All in all, my point is Auburn won this game 48-11. It was a blowout. It was not close for a majority of this game. This was the CBS game. Auburn dominated this game the whole entire game. This was one of Bo Nix's best games that he's ever had in his career. He played really, really well. And LSU's quarterback at the time, do you know his name? Who started this game for LSU? His name was TJ Finley. And yeah, now TJ Finley is the quarterback for the Auburn Tigers. Not the starting quarterback. There's still lots to be told about that when we have an interesting quarterback battle between Bo Nix, between TJ Finley, between Demetrius Davis. Still lots to be told about what happens. First of all, what happens at the first 4 games for Auburn going into this point, whoever starts out at quarterback and whoever they decide to take on the reins for the rest of the season in SEC play. So lots to be told about there, but I think it's interesting that TJ Finley, who started this game for LSU last season, is now on Auburn. Very exciting there. Very interesting stuff. I think that LSU getting this game at home is absolutely huge for them, man. You look back to that national championship season. What was their last home game? Their last home game that season was the Texas A&M one, the homecoming game where Joe Burrow came out of the tunnel with this jersey on, actually, if I turn this around for you guys. Yeah, you got the nice Burrow with the Louisiana spelling on there. I'll fix that. Amazing game. LSU won. They go on, win the national championship. The fans go crazy, everything like that. It was an amazing game. Just a really good night for LSU in general. LSU has not had a home game, and they will not have had a home game against a Power 5 team since winning the national championship up until this point. Obviously, last season, COVID and everything took away a lot from that. Limited capacity fans, I don't know what they were rolling with, probably 25% of fans, and they didn't even have that one premier opponent. They didn't have your Alabamas coming into town. Actually, wait, no, that's a lie. They did have Alabama coming into town last year, but you didn't get full capacity for that game. It is not the same at all when you had those kind of teams come in and not have full capacity. So this will be LSU's kind of, I want to say, kind of celebration game, and just the celebration in general that fans are back in 100% capacity. in stadiums. There's a chance that this could be a night game. You might have a night game in Death Valley. Again, this still needs to be scheduled, but I think that there's a good chance of this happening because I think the CBS 3:30 game will be Alabama and Ole Miss, and then I think that this has a good shot at being an ESPN night game. So, night game at Death Valley, the first 100% capacity game since late November 2019. I think that is going to be a really, really tough environment for Auburn to go into, even though they've already gone through Penn State. So they're going to have a tough start to the schedule. Auburn will 110%. Keys for the game for both of these teams. That's what we're going to get into. Keys for Auburn. Let's start off with Auburn. You kind of know, first off, just a little recap on what I think of Auburn this year. I think the quarterback position is still a huge question mark, and I think it will be even past this game. I don't think you're going to have your set guy until, I apologize, I'm getting a phone call. I don't think that you're going to have your set guy at quarterback until maybe week 6 or 7. That's when you're going to be confident that you have your guy at the quarterback position. I just don't think. There's so many things to work through with Bo Nix. You got Demetrius Davis, who, yes, looks like a young freshman with potential and everything like that, but is he going to be your set-in-stone quarterback at this position? Maybe even TJ Finley. I think the quarterback's a huge question mark. What's not a question mark for Auburn, this running back position, obviously. You got Sean Shivers and then, obviously, Tank Bigsby leading that running back room. I think that's the strength of the offense. The wide receiver position, you got some question marks. Who's going to be the number one guy? Who's going to really carry this team in the wide receiver position, which we're going to get to in a little bit. Defensively, I look at the linebackers. I kind of see them as the strength of this defense as well as the secondary. I think that they got a really nice and experienced secondary going into the season. A bit of a weaker spot up front. So my keys for Auburn in this game, you cannot rely on Tank Bigsby and Shivers the entire game because LSU is going to be able to read that, especially going to LSU. You're not going to be able to run the ball down their throat for 300 plus yards in this game. It's just not going to happen. Even though you'd like to do that, to be able to win an SEC game, you got to throw the ball around a bit. So that's what I'm trying to get at here. Do not be afraid to throw the ball. It's going to be tough. LSU has some amazing corners, which we're going to touch on a bit later. But all in all, I think Auburn has to be able to throw the ball around to be able to be successful in this game, which kind of leads me into my next key. Insert name here needs a 100-plus yard receiving game. Insert name here. Who could that be? That could be anyone from Kenyon. That could be anyone from Johnson, Hudson, Capers. I look at those 4 guys to be the probable guys. If you're going to have anyone in that 100-plus receiving yards range, it's going to be one of those 4 guys. I think some wide receiver needs to have a big game here. Again, I said the passing attack has to be prevalent in this game. Yes, I still think Bigsby and Shivers can be the main factor in this game, but someone in the receiving core has to step up and have a big game if you're going to go into Death Valley and come out successful. So when you don't know the quarterback right now, when I can't say Bo Nix, TJ Finley, Demetrius Davis needs to have a big game, I think you need to have one of those wide receivers really, really step up for Auburn to be successful in this game. And then my last one, I have Papo and McClain have to cover the middle of the field very, very well in this scenario. I think they're 2 very, very good linebackers. And again, I said it, the linebacker core is the strength of this team. You got to be able to cover the middle of the field because LSU has been very, very good at picking apart the middle of the field. And when you got your good secondary back there, I think hopefully Auburn's D-line will be able to get after them, but I'm really, really worried about this LSU receiving core, so you're really going to have to be able to protect the middle of the field if you are one of those linebackers. LSU keys. Here are my keys for LSU this season. Or not this season, this game, sorry. You got to force Auburn to some 3rd and longs in this scenario. Like I was touched on a bit while ago when I was going through Auburn's keys. LSU has the best cornerback duo in all of college football. You look at Derek Stingley, maybe the best player in all of college football in this current moment, and you look at Elias Ricks coming in, having one of the best SEC freshman seasons last year, and he is going to grow at the cornerback position for LSU this season. LSU secondary is insane. And when you force Auburn into obvious passing situations, when they can't run the ball with guys like Bigsby and guys like Shivers, and again, I said it before, Auburn's wide receiver position isn't the strongest this year. I think LSU will force many punts in this game if they are able to force Auburn to some 3rd and long scenarios in this game. Another key that I have, I think that the passing game will be most effective for LSU in this game. I think that it is going to be your main source of success in this game, but I still think either Davis Price or Emory Jr. needs to have a 70-plus rushing yard game. It doesn't need to be up in the hundreds, but I think you got to have one guy have a decent chunk of yards in this game. Get the rushing game going, open up the passing game a bit. I think one of those guys needs to be somewhere in that 70s range for LSU to be successful. My last key for LSU, limit Tank Bigsby. He is probably the Achilles heel for Auburn in all of this. I think he is the guy that's definitely going to draw the most attention from each and every single SEC team that steps in and faces Auburn this year, because he's the most talented guy on that team. But you take away Tank Bigsby, you take away even Shivers, take away the rushing game, and what do you have left at Auburn? I think that would put LSU in a very, very good position to come out with a win in this game. So those are my 3 keys for LSU. Force Auburn to 3rd and longs. Have one of your running backs rush for 70-plus yards and limit Tank Bigsby in this game. My final thoughts on this game, I think LSU overall in this current point in time, again, this definitely changes as the season goes on, as we start to see what these teams are going to look like for this season. I think LSU is more talented and has more balance on both sides of the ball going into this game. The home field advantage for LSU, they have probably the best top 3 at least home field advantages in all of college football. The home field advantage definitely helps in this scenario, especially when you put it in the position that LSU is going to be in, where they haven't had a full capacity home game since winning the national championship. I think these fans are going to be fired up. Auburn has recently struggled on the road, especially offensively. That's going to be a struggle for them. I just think LSU really takes advantage of that, and I think that their passing attack comes alive late in the second quarter, and that's when you start to see LSU starting to pull away. My final score prediction for this game, I have Auburn scoring 21 points in this game. I have LSU putting up 38. So the final score, LSU winning 38-21.